something really tense happened in the South China Sea that could have started a big international problem. On August 13th, 2025, at 7:46 in the morning, an American warship called the USS Higgins was sailing near a place called Scarborough Shoal when Chinese warships suddenly appeared and confronted them. No one shot any weapons, but it was still very dangerous because even one small mistake could have caused a huge fight between two of the world's most powerful countries. The USS Higgins is a really big and strong destroyer that's 155 meters long and weighs more than 9,000 tons. It was built to be tough and intimidating in any ocean. But when the Chinese ships showed up, they weren't scared at all. The Chinese sailors got on their radio and spoke in English with Chinese accents saying, "US warship, you are in Chinese waters. Leave immediately." This wasn't just a friendly warning. It was like they were daring the Americans to start something. Within minutes, several gray Chinese warships appeared on the horizon, cutting through the water really fast. They positioned themselves right next to the American ship on what sailors call the starboard side, which is the right side. The Chinese ships matched the speed of the USS Higgins perfectly, staying dangerously close. Their boat wakes made sharp white lines in the blue ocean water. This whole maneuver was planned. The Chinese wanted to show that they controlled this area of the ocean. This confrontation was really significant because it was the first time in 6 years that an American destroyer had sailed so close to Scarborough Shoal. For 6 whole years, China had gotten used to thinking this area belonged to them without anyone challenging it. But now the Americans were back, and the Chinese weren't happy about it. The radio conversations got more and more tense as the Chinese ships moved to within just a few hundred meters of the American destroyer. That's really close when you're talking about huge warships moving through the ocean. Every time one ship changed its speed or direction, the other ships tracked it carefully. Nobody fired their guns, but everyone knew that the situation was extremely dangerous. The American sailors stayed calm and professional because they're trained for exactly this kind of pressure. Their strategy was simple: keep going straight at the same speed, don't say much on the radio, and don't do anything that could be seen as starting a fight. In these freedom of navigation operations, staying cool and not reacting is actually the most powerful thing you can do. To understand why this confrontation mattered so much, you need to know about Scarborough Shoal itself. It's basically just a ring of rocks and coral reefs that barely stick up above the ocean surface. It's located about 120 nautical miles west of the Philippines, which means it should legally belong to the Philippines according to international ocean laws called the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. For Filipino families, these waters aren't just empty ocean. They're where thousands of fishermen go to catch fish, to feed their families, and make money. The fishing grounds around Scarborough Shoal have been used by Filipino fishermen for generations. But China doesn't care about these international laws. Instead, they claim almost the entire South China Sea belongs to them using something called the 9-dash line, which is like drawing a giant boundary around nearly all of this huge ocean area. China sends Coast Guard ships and fishing boats that are actually controlled by their military to block Filipino fishermen and stop them from fishing in their traditional areas. It's like China is acting as if Scarborough Shoal is definitely their territory, even though international law says it belongs to the Philippines. In July 2016, an international court in The Hague made a really important decision. After years of legal battles, the court said that China's 9-dash line claim was wrong, and that Scarborough Shoal couldn't generate its own exclusive economic zone. This was a huge legal victory for the Philippines. It should have guaranteed that Filipino fishermen could go back to their traditional fishing grounds. But here's the problem. Nothing actually changed in the real world. China basically said, "We don't care what that court decided," and kept patrolling the area as if the legal ruling never happened. This showed how there can be a big difference between what international law says should happen and what actually happens when a powerful country decides to ignore the rules. The United States got involved through what they call freedom of navigation operations. Even though America never officially signed the UN Ocean Law Treaty, they enforce its principles more than almost any other country. U.S. Navy destroyers, like the USS Higgins, regularly sail near places like Scarborough Shoal to challenge what they call excessive maritime claims. American leaders argue that no single country should be able to lock down ocean areas that connect Asia to the rest of the world. These patrols show support for allies like the Philippines, while sending a message to China that important trade routes can't be turned into Chinese lakes. For China, however, these operations look like deliberate provocations and proof that America has double standards since the US uses a treaty it never actually joined. Every time there's one of these confrontations, both China and America tell completely different stories about what happened. China's military usually announces that they drove away the American ship and protected Chinese sovereignty. Chinese media repeats phrases like "maintain stability" and "defend territorial integrity" to show their citizens that the government is standing strong against foreign pressure. Meanwhile, American officials insist that their ships completed their planned route without being forced to leave. The Pentagon makes it clear that their passage was legal and protected under international law. The message to America's allies is simple: America is standing firm and won't retreat under pressure. The problem is that neither side provides independent proof of what actually happened. There are no videos released to the public, no radar images, nothing that outside observers can use to figure out who's telling the truth. This creates a perfect situation for propaganda and misinformation, where people just have to choose which story to believe. What makes this situation even more dangerous is the advanced weapons that both sides bring to these confrontations. The USS Higgins carries something called the Aegis Combat System, which connects radar, missiles, and command systems into one super-smart fighting network. Its SPY-1D radar can track hundreds of targets at the same time, giving the Americans a big advantage in detecting threats early. The ship is armed with SM-2 and ESSM missiles for shooting down aircraft and incoming missiles, Tomahawk cruise missiles for attacking targets on land, and Harpoon missiles specifically designed to sink enemy ships. For close-up defense, it has a Phalanx CIWS system that can fire thousands of rounds per minute, acting like a steel wall against incoming threats. Add electronic warfare systems that can jam enemy communications and radar, and the USS Higgins becomes way more than just a destroyer. It's a symbol of American sea power. But China isn't intimidated by American technology. The Chinese Navy deployed their most advanced warships to confront the USS Higgins, including Type 052D destroyers and Type 054A frigates. The Type 052D destroyer is armed with the YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missile, a weapon that military experts really respect because of its speed and long range. It can threaten even the best defended ships. For air defense, It uses the HHQ-9 missile system designed to protect Chinese ship formations from aircraft and incoming missiles. These Chinese ships also have phased array radar systems that give them modern detection networks, closing the technology gap with Western navies. The Type 054A frigates are smaller but add numbers and flexibility to the Chinese formation. Together, this fleet represents the sharp edge of China's naval rise. By sending them to shadow the USS Higgins, China showed its willingness to challenge American presence directly. During the actual confrontation, the difference in tactics was really obvious. The Americans kept their course and speed steady, avoided unnecessary radio chatter, and moved with quiet confidence. This strategy was deliberate. They wanted to show professionalism, avoid provocation, and reinforce that their mission was routine and legal under international law. China, by contrast, pushed for confrontation. Their ships moved dangerously close, sometimes running parallel to the USS Higgins, while constantly radioing warnings demanding that the American ship change course. These actions were designed to create psychological pressure, capture dramatic footage for later use, and prove to the world that China would stand face-to-face with America. This wasn't an exchange of missiles, but it was like a high-stakes chess match where even a single mistake could have sparked a military clash. The encounter showed how fragile stability is in contested seas and how easily peace can be broken when great powers test each other's limits. These kinds of confrontations don't happen in isolation. They're part of a much bigger pattern of rising competition in the region. China has been staging live-fire military drills, amphibious landing practices, and missile launches in disputed waters, sending a clear signal about their intent to dominate this maritime area. These exercises are more than just training. They're political messages, warning rivals not to challenge China's authority. The People's Liberation Army Navy now keeps daily patrols around Scarborough Shoal, the Paracel Islands, and the Spratly Islands. This isn't simple defense. It's an attempt to turn international waters into zones of effective Chinese control. Coast Guard and militia vessels block foreign ships, shadow fishermen, and create barriers that prevent others from exercising their legal rights. Other countries are starting to respond to China's increasing aggressiveness. For the first time, India and the Philippines carried out joint naval drills in the South China Sea. Though small in scale, this cooperation carries heavy symbolism. For the Philippines, it shows they're not alone against Chinese pressure. For India, it demonstrates their willingness to act as a security partner in the wider Indo-Pacific region. The United States has also stepped up its presence by expanding defense agreements with the Philippines, granting American forces access to additional Philippine military bases. These new sites, some close to the South China Sea and Taiwan, allow the U.S. to project power quickly into contested areas. This reassures the Philippines of America's commitment to their defense, while also raising China's fears of being surrounded by hostile forces. Scarborough Shoal has become one of the most dangerous flashpoints in the region. Chinese vessels have repeatedly used water cannons to block Filipino fishermen and deny them access to traditional fishing grounds. Each clash gets documented and spreads online, turning local disputes into international headlines. For the Philippines, the shoal is both a source of food for coastal communities and a symbol of national sovereignty. For China, it's a strategic location they believe they cannot afford to lose. What makes this situation so dangerous is that it's not just about one reef or one confrontation. China's moves around Scarborough Shoal are part of a deliberate strategy to show that they control the South China Sea. By blocking Philippine boats or shadowing American warships, China sends the message that no one can operate in these waters without their permission. For the United States, the stakes are equally high. If America appeared to have been pushed back by Chinese pressure, their freedom of navigation operations would lose credibility. That would weaken international law and encourage China to expand their control even further. To avoid this, American commanders keep ships active in contested waters, making clear that America will not step aside. Each patrol is designed to prove that global sea lanes remain open and that power alone cannot erase international law. Equally important is reassuring allies like the Philippines. For years, Manila has faced direct pressure, their fishermen blocked, their coast guard harassed by water cannons. Without strong support, the Philippines might question whether their alliance with America is reliable. The broader implications go far beyond Asia. Scarborough Shoal has become a global symbol of power competition. Whoever dominates this narrative shapes the rules of maritime order worldwide. The South China Sea is one of the busiest trade routes on Earth, carrying trillions of dollars worth of goods every year. If China normalizes their dominance here, it will shift the balance of power far beyond just this region. The August 13th incident ended without shots being fired, but it underlined how thin the line is between routine patrols and open conflict. What happened near Scarborough Shoal wasn't just a territorial dispute, it was a direct challenge to international law, freedom of navigation, and America's credibility as a global leader. Each close encounter now becomes a test of restraint, raising the question of whether both superpowers can control escalation or if one miscalculation will ignite a serious crisis. Looking ahead, the stakes remain extremely high. Scarborough Shoal is no longer just a remote reef. It has turned into a strategic test that will help define the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific region. The world is watching these confrontations carefully because every move carries consequences that go far beyond the South China Sea. This standoff between American and Chinese warships near a small cluster of rocks shows how international tensions can escalate quickly in our interconnected world, where global trade routes and national pride intersect in dangerous ways.